Hey everyone, how's it going? It's That Nerd Ryan here, and I'm super excited today to be talking about this. I have just finished Jojo's Bizarre Adventure about a week ago, and I wanted to talk about the show because it has honestly become one of my favorites. So, for those of you who don't know, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure is an anime that consists of currently six parts. Based off of the manga of the same name that has nine parts starting, I believe, this week or so. So it is a little far behind, but that is completely fine, because the way this anime ends is basically an ending to the anime. But yeah, so I'm going to kind of sum up each part. I'm going to do a little quick thing about what it's about, and then we'll talk about each part, and we'll rank each part. So, the show follows the Jojo or Joestar bloodline, usually with somebody that has a name that starts with J-O, and their last name is either Joestar, Kujo, Giovanna, or Hitachika, which we'll get to those in a moment on how they tie in and everything. And everybody is in the same bloodline in this. During this, of course, by the name, bizarre things happen. We get vampires, we get ghosts that follow you around, we get serial killers, the Italian mob, and a preacher that basically ends the world. But yeah, so each part also takes place usually in a different time period. I say usually because some of the parts go from being 60 years apart to being 2 years apart. So it all starts out in the 1860s with Jonathan Joestar. In this, Jonathan is basically a rich boy who had a privileged life, but when he was born, his dad got into an accident that killed his mother, and was about to get rounded by this family of thieves known as the Brandos. But the father wakes up and thinks that the Brandos were there to save their life, and it jumps about 10 years later. In that, the thief is dying, and he has a son named Dio. Dio is then shipped off to the Joestar family, where he just decides to be very evil. He kills Jonathan's dog and just makes his whole life miserable as can be. They grow up together as brothers, however, they still have this rivalry. The rivalry gets to the point where Dio finds out about a girl that Jonathan is attracted to, and she's attracted to him, and steals her first kiss. So yeah, not only is he a dog murderer, he's a sexual assaulter. But he's also just a very terrible, terrible person. And they find this mask, and Dio tries putting it on other people and seeing what happens. They turn into vampires. So he puts it on himself. So in that, he destroys the Joestar home and basically ruins Jonathan's life even more. So Jonathan goes out to find a way to beat Dio. There he learns about Hamon, which is a life energy, kind of like ki, kind of like chi, if you're looking at Dragon Ball or stuff like that. And it's basically your breathing and life essence that helps you fight better or manipulate elements. He learns this from a guy named Zeppelini, and I also skipped over the best character in parts 1 and 2, Robert E.O. Speedwagon, which is another thing about this show that's great, is there's so many musical references in it that I just adore that fact. But yeah, Robert E.O. Speedwagon is actually a very important character in the entire franchise, but he was basically a street gang thug that kind of fell in love with Jonathan, I guess, and just kind of obsessed over the family, and made it his life and his legacy to help out the Joestar bloodline. But yeah, so him, Speedwagon, him, Jonathan, and the master of Hamon, Zeppelini, go on a course to train Jonathan and fight Dio. Dio brings back some knights. Jonathan honorably defeats them and then goes up against Dio, defeating him. It then jumps to 10 years later where Jonathan's wife Ariana is pregnant and they're moving to America. In this, Dio's head comes to take over Jonathan's body. The ship goes down and Dio's head and Jonathan are trapped in a box together. And Ariana takes a random baby with her that was a sole survivor of the ship besides herself. Then it skips to about, I want to say, 60-ish years later. Here we meet Joseph Joestar. Joseph is one of the long-running Joestars in this, next to the next protagonist. But he is in what we call, the first part was called Phantom Blood, this one's called Fighting Tendencies. Fighting Tendencies kind of just shows that the original creators of the mask, known as the Pillarmen, are come back and wreaking havoc. Joseph is called to arms to fight, so each Joestar kind of has their own quirk. So Jonathan was a loyal, chivalrous, honorable man. Joseph's kind of a punk kid in this part that is not really honorable, just goofs off, that kind of stuff. My favorite part with Joseph is, and it happens twice, when he's facing somebody that might be too strong for him, he's like, well, it's time to use my secret move. Run away! And just running away, which is great. But yeah, so he trains with a descendant of Zeppelini named Caesar, under tutelage of a Haman user known as Lisa, to defeat the Pillarmen. In this, we lose Caesar, but Joseph wins against the Pillarmen. We also find out that Lisa is his mother, as well as being the girl that Ariana saved at the end of Phantom Blood. In this, it turns out that the mask helped the Pillarmen live during the day and also make them like these unbeatable creatures. The head Pillarmen, known as Cars, gets the mask on and becomes basically unstoppable, but Jonathan defeats him with his own life, or so we think. Turns out Jonathan survived, attends his own funeral, and marries a housemaid that his mother had, that he kind of just mentioned that he would marry randomly. And then it jumps forward again about another 40 years, and in this we have Joseph going to Japan, which one of the funniest meme lines ever being, I will never forgive the Japanese, and it's because his only daughter, moved to Japan with a man and had a kid. Now this is where Hamon goes away, and we're introduced to stands, which, like this. This is Stardust Crusaders, which is what we're watching right now. And basically what it is stands are the embodiment of your fighting spirit. The Joestars randomly got their stands, including the new protagonist, Jotaro Kujo, who's my personal favorite. And they got these stands because Dio is back in Jonathan's body. He somehow, it's not explained until part 4, unleashed a stand on himself, and that helped the entire Joestar bloodline go through getting their stand. What confused me at the beginning was it made it sound like only Joestars got stands, so I originally thought that Abdul was a Joestar as well, but it turns out that other people were getting stands as well. In this, it becomes kind of a monster of the week sort of thing, where they fight a certain stand user on their way to defeating Dio to save Jotaro's mother, whose stand is killing her. We get very iconic scenes. This is probably, like, if you've never seen Jojo and you've heard of it, this is probably the one that you think of the most. But yeah, this is where the show goes from using Hamon to stands, but also going to Monster of the Week, because basically from here on out, the entire series becomes Monster of the Week. So I'm not going to go over every single stand and everything like that, but I will go over the main villain and their stand. So the main villain, again, is Dio. Dio's stand is the World, or The Worldo, which has the power to stop time. Jotaro's somehow is able to manipulate that, along with precision and punching really fast. We are also introduced to Old Joseph, whose stand is Hermit Purple, which is kind of one of the useless stands ever. Basically, if he breaks expensive devices with his stand, he could see the future. Then we get Kakuin, who's my favorite non-Joestar character. His is Hierophant Green, who can, like, launch emeralds at people and stuff. Then you got Jean-Pierre Polareth, who has Silver Chariot, who is basically like a swordsman. And then Muhammad Abdul, who has Magician's Red, who's like a fire controller. Then we also get, later on in the story, Iggy, who is a dog, who has the Fool as his, which is sand manipulation. So yeah, anyways, Jotaro beats Dio, and after losing Kakuin, Iggy, and Abdul, the rest live happily ever after for a while. Cut to 10 years later, where we get to Diamond is Unbreakable, which is part 4, and we're introduced to Joseph's secret son, which bothers me that that's how it is, but okay, of Josuke Hitachika, who is living in a crazy, noisy, bizarre town of Mario, where a arrow that unleashes people's stands is randomly showing up. Now, Josuke always had his stand, which is Shining Diamond, but other people are starting to appear, and some of them are good, some of them are bad. What I really liked about this season was it was like very low stakes compared to everything else up until the end. But we get his friends. Really, he has 2 main friends who I always forget the names of. I feel bad because I do like this season a lot. But Jotaro's back as well. But one of his friends has Reverb, which has 3 different transmissions, or echoes is the technical name of it. I watched it in English, I'm sorry. But Act 1 is basically sound effects, Act 2 is changing things with with sound effects, and Act 3 is changing weight. Then we have, I believe it's Izioku, I could be wrong, who has the hand, which is able to delete anything out of existence that swipes. And we also have like minor main characters like Rohan Kashibe, who has Heaven's Door, who is able to basically manipulate people's actions and everything like that. It's honestly, I was thinking about it last night, it is one of the strongest stands ever because it can literally just change the game. But basically, most of the story you don't know who the villain is, and then we get Yoshikage Kirei, who is a serial killer based off of David Bowie, who has Killer Queen as his stand, which is basically got 3 different types of bombs. One is any type of touch that Yoshikage or Killer Queen touches turns into a bomb, and he just goes like that and it blows up. The second one, which is a unbreakable RCXD, known as Heart Attack. And then the third one is Bites the Dust, which, if anybody learns of Yoshikage Kirei's actual name, blows up time itself and restarts it in a time loop. A ambulance defeats Yoshikage Kirei, runs him over, and that's how that one ends. But it's a really fun and out there part. We then move to part 5, which is Golden Wind, which is about the Italian mob. Basically, we're introduced to Giro Giovanna, who is the son of Dio, but is technically a Joestar because it was with Jonathan's body. But he has the stand Golden Wind, or Golden Experience, that not only punches really fast and everything, which, by the way, Josuke's punches really fast and heals things. Giorno's can turn anything inanimate into living objects. The whole point is that he wants to join the Italian mob and get drugs out of the Italian mob. So they have to go and find this mysterious boss. He takes a team with Bruno Bucciardi, who has Zipper Man, or Sticky Fingers, Mista, who has Sex Pistols, which is just 6 bullets that he'd shoot. Then we have Fuego, who leaves on early. We have Narancha, who has Aerosmith. And we have Abacchio, who has a really cool stand that I forgot the name of, unfortunately, but they have to fight a man known as Diavolo, who has the stand King Crimson, which again is another time manipulator, which I feel like this show really focuses on how important time is. This takes place in 2001, ends with Giorno becoming the head of the mafia. Basically everybody but Giorno, Mista, and Diavolo's daughter die. We lose basically everybody. And Fuego survives, but Fuego kind of disappears. We're then at part 6, which is Stone Ocean. We follow Jotaro's daughter, Jolene, who is convicted of a murder that she didn't do and is stuck in prison. During this, we have the villain, which is Father Pucci, who is somebody who is obsessed with Dio and wants to fully do Dio's plan. In this, which is recreating Earth to where everybody knows their fate. So it's supposedly supposed to be their idea of heaven. And in this, Jolene breaks out. They end up fighting, and Pucci ends up winning initially, restarting the universe, killing Jotaro, Jolene, their friends, everybody except for one person named Emporio. And Emporio ends up defeating Pucci and resetting again, where the Stone Ocean crew does not have to go through that pain. Altogether, I thought the entire story was amazing. Just really quick ranking, I think Stardust Crusaders was the best, followed by Golden Wind. Then we got the Diamond is Unbreakable, then Stone Ocean, then Battle Tendencies, then Phantom Blood. I really think that it does mostly up the ante each time, but for the top 2 on this, I just really love the characters and everything. Definitely recommend JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I already said it's probably one of my favorite shows, giving it a 10 out of 10. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and follow me on all my social media down below. It's that Nerd Ryan telling you, have an amazing day.